All right, my friends. I just uploaded the Chumash portion for today. You can look on YouTube and read it. It's about how Abraham bought Hebron to bury his wife with the commentaries. Okay, now it's from the Rebbe. This is in the speeches of the Rebbe in book number 1, Chelik Aleph. And it talks about a very interesting thing, and I'll tell you what it is in short. That Abraham wants to find a groom for his, sorry, Abraham wants to find a wife for his son Yitzchak, and he sends Eliezer, his servant, and Eliezer, it's a what is it, 14-day journey, 17-day journey, and he makes it in just 1 hour. Within the same day that he left, he arrives. So what was the purpose of this miracle? What was the purpose of the miracle? So let's learn. Whoever copied this over did a wonderful job of copying it over. Once in a while, the pages are crooked, so you just have to sort of tilt your head over to the side, and everything will be all right. Just when we finish learning, just remember to tilt your head back to be straight. Huh? Okay. Let's see. Go. Not too much. Here we go. There we go. The first marriage and also the first matchmaking that's described in the Torah is this week's Torah portion where Yitzchak gets married to Rivka. Vegan Adam and Chava, that's what it says by Adam and his wife. It says only in the Midrash. And the wedding between Adam and Eve, Chava's Eve, is only hinted at in the Torah. And just a little hint, whatever it is. But here is all great, very details. One of the details is like this. When Eliezer, Abraham's servant, set off to look for a bride, and Abraham, interestingly enough, he knew who the bride was. We said last week's Torah portion that he knew it was going to be Rivka. He had a sense, or at least it was said to him from heaven, that he knew now was the time. So let me make this bigger. Some people don't like it to be so small. There we go. Okay. So this is when Eliezer arrived where he was supposed to be to find Rivka. When Eliezer relates how Abraham sent him to this place called Aram Naharaim, and Vir is a hin gekumen, and how he arrived, he said, Avo hayom, I came today. What does it mean I came today? Obviously, I came today. They saw him arrive. He says, no, the point is that the same day that he left, that today he came, types Rashi says, today I left Abraham in Ur Kasdim, and I arrived here, a journey of like 13 days. We'll see how long. Here we learn that he had the road, they say, jumped for him. In other words, he jumped over the whole way. He started traveling a normal way, and all of a sudden he arrived. Today I left, and today I arrived. This means this is what's called fitzat haderech, the jumping of the journey. So Livos at Gedarft Zion, the kafitza. Why did there have to be such a apparently meaningless miracle? When Livos does Eliezer detail, then why did Eliezer have to say this over? Why did he tell them? Has it got anything to do with the wedding? Zion them for runs face source. There's two reasons that are given for this. One is a normal reason, and the other one is sort of a Kabbalistic reason, Hasidic reason. The Tzveita, the second one, is a Hasidic explanation. Vetman thereby, by means of this, Zed the Hafshata on Neshama, by means of this, we'll see the soul from a Hasidic explanation. Okay, let's learn a regular explanation, and we'll give here, we're going to have an example what Hasidut added to the world. Let's see the regular explanation and the Hasidic explanation. Why did Eliezer have to make a journey which was more than 10 days long in just 1 hour or whatever? Why? First reason, when Abraham sent Eliezer to Aram Naharaim, that's the place where Rivka was, Hoter eingeschrieben, he wrote Ashtar Matana. He wrote a document which was a gift for the ganze Megan to Yitzchak. He wrote a gift of all of his possessions. Excuse me 1 second. 1 minute. Excuse me. He wrote a gift for all of his possessions to Yitzchak. Was tut men aber mit dem Zman. Okay, he wrote. So it says that he wrote. We learned about this in the morning. He signed away all of his possessions to Yitzchak. Okay. Now the question is, what about writing the time? When is he going to write? Why did he give everything to Yitzchak? So that when Eliezer arrived to Rivka, and he saw that this was a potential bride for Abraham's son, Yitzchak, so he wanted to impress her. So he said, Abraham was a famous person. Said, well, all the possessions of Abraham he gave to his son. Here's the deed. The question is when to write the date. If he writes the date on the day that he gave it, so he didn't really give it on that date with a whole heart. Why not? Because it was only on the condition that Yitzchak was going to find a proper wife. So it wasn't really giving it away because he hadn't found the proper wife yet. So the giving away wouldn't have been the time when it was written. On the other hand, he couldn't make it late. If he made it late, so he's also not giving with a whole heart. Why? Because maybe when the time comes, maybe he'll have changed his mind. Who knows? So he's got a problem with the date. So let's see. He'll say it in Yiddish. Schreib dafür the Kesuvim. If he writes the earliest time, this says, if Abraham would have written the date of this document that he gave everything over to Yitzchak, if he would have written it when Eliezer left Ur Kasdim, as farvaz soll epis weggeben sein Megan, why should Abraham give away all of his possessions for 17 days? There's a Zibitzin. So 17 days of the journey. Why should he give it away so early? Huh? He's giving it. He's signing away everything that he has to Yitzchak. Why? For what reason would he do a thing like that 17 days early? Maybe he wouldn't even find anything. Especially like it says that there's a law in the Mishnah that a person should always be careful about all of his possessions. And therefore, Mila from Speter, a man stuff he has to be careful. Mila from Speter on, from later on, this says from Zain Eliezer's Ankommen. So maybe let's write it on the day that he arrives in Aranat, right? By Rivka, as Muzer Avek Geben dem Farmagen, so leave them Shiruch. So why would he want to give it away 17 days early? Why would Abraham have to be willing to be without any possessions? Technically, he didn't own anything, right? 17 days before it was even necessary to do. Aber nicht mit 7 Tag früher, right? He couldn't, true, when he did find a wife, Abraham wanted to give away everything that he had to Yitzchak, but not 17 days earlier, not before he found a wife. Okay, so maybe what we can do is like this. Let him write, it was a 17-day journey, so let him write this bill of ownership that Abraham signed away all of his possessions. Let him do it 17 days later. As he said, well, that's a possibility, but not a very good one. Why? Because Schreiben mitazman from Zivit and Sog, if you want to write the date of the gift 17 days afterwards, is a shtar muchar. That's what's called a delayed, a post-written check. Emes taka is a shtar muchar. It's true, a post-dated check is okay. Aber Faran nit azoy, but it's not so simple. Hat Abraham geschrieben dem Zman that the date, when hat im angeschrieben dem Star. So if Abraham wrote the deed and he wrote a later date, so it means it's sort of like a lie, right? He's saying, I today give everything away, and then he writes it 17 days later. He puts the date 17 days later. Therefore is given kavitza the derech. So if so, Abraham was in a bit of a quandary. He didn't know what to do. He didn't want to give everything away he had before he really intended to give it away. That's 17 days later. On the other hand, he didn't want to write a date that's later than the date that he actually wrote the deed. So therefore, God solved the problem by making the whole journey of 17 days in one day. Hayom yatzati ve'omim bati. So that the date would be exactly on the date when Abraham wrote the deed, would be the date that's on the deed, and the date that he found his wife to be. So everything would work together. Okay. B'shas Eliezer is gekumen. So Aram Narayim, when Eliezer came to Aram Narayim, hoter more gehad, he was afraid. He was afraid. Yeah. That Betuel or Lavan would ask him a question. Vi kumtas, how is it that the date on this deed of ownership is from today? It can't be that you left today. You left 17 days earlier. As is dachashtar muchar. So it's a post-dated check, and if so, it looks like he's lying, right? It's a lie. Abraham is writing, today I give away everything I have to Yitzchak, and it wasn't today, it was really 17 days later. He put a date later. It says, therefore, Eliezer said, no, today I left and today I came. So they know that the deed is a good deed and there's no questions on it. Okay? That is the normal answer. Now the Hasidic answer. Why did there have to be a jumping of his journey? Why a 17-day journey and God made it one day? Why? It says that Rivka bein Betuel in Shtub, that when Rivka was by Betuel in a house, Betuel was her father, right? Is given was Keshoshana bein Achochim. She was like a rose among the thorns. Tavka adored Vaxt the Shoshana. Among the thorns, that's where roses grow, right? The stems of roses also had thorns on them. So a rose grows among thorns. On the darna, and these thorns, geheren zu ihr aufgehalten zu wachsen. But these thorns, they prevent the rose from growing too much. But not just the thorns on the rose, but the thorns that she grows among the thorns in a thorn, like in a thorn field or whatever, weeds and thorns. Umen darf haben a taina, you have to have a reason, un a koach, and some sort of a power, or if a roisnem, and to take away the rose from the thorns. Why? Because the thorns don't want to let the rose go. Why not? Because in the merit of the thorn, let's say you have a field and there's a lot of weeds and thorns and brambles and things like that, but among them is growing this beautiful rose. So the thorns don't want the rose to leave. Why? Because all the time the beautiful rose is there, so he waters where the rose is, and because of that, everything around the rose also gets water. Is the zechus and the merit of the rose as grows up all of the whole entire field, the whole right. It waters the whole thing. As memele leven ze oich leven ze oich derfon. Therefore, they live from the nourishment, the fertilizer, and the water that's given to the rose. Okay, here's the example. Lavan and Betuel knew they were evil people, but they knew that they were existing in the merit of Rivka, so they didn't want to let her go. That would their whole blessing would leave. B'shas Rivka, when Rivka was 3 years old, and one day was demelt as a royal abia, then according technically she can have sexual intercourse, even though that he didn't, she can't give birth to children, so they don't have sexual intercourse at that day. But technically they can get married at the age of 3. As a chatan atzuhaben mit Yitzchak, she could get married to Yitzchak as had zich dem gleich the heritage. Abraham suddenly felt this. Abraham, as far as he was 17 days away, but Abraham felt that the destined wife of his son, Yitzchak, the one that would give birth to the whole Jewish people, that she became of age. She could be married. He didn't know how he felt, he didn't know, etc. He just knew that. He knew that she was of age. So generally he knew where she was, etc. Certain details he didn't know, but that he did know. That previously, Rivka, before she was 3 years old, she could not get married. It's not a marriageable age. I mean, don't get excited. Nobody gets married at that age now. No women get married at the age of 3 years old. But in that time, they were more mature. And also, he did not have intercourse with her until she could have children. Okay, so nevertheless, Abraham felt that Rivka was of marriageable age when 3 years old. The Dazika an derung is euch der Koach und the Taina euch zu verbinden sich mit Kedusha. The same thing is, as soon as she became 3 years old, now she was eligible to be connected to holiness on a royce again and to go away from the thorns. Had Avram gleich, so Abraham immediately said to Eliezer, El Artziv El Molarti Telich, immediately go to the place of my birth, or Kasdim, that's where he was, on Lekachet Isha Livini, and to take a wife from a, he felt that the wife of Yitzchak had come of marriageable age. He didn't exactly understand all the details, so he sent Eliezer there. Okay, so if Eliezer takes 17 days to get there, it means that she has to be 17 days in among the thorns, among these evil people, unnecessarily, because when she was 3 years old, she could have left. But Abraham didn't know about her being eligible until she was 3. And that's a 17-day journey. So how can you get her out of there immediately? Then as halt nit gewen kein kafitza derech, if there was no jumping of the road, if the road did not, how do you say, fold up underneath him, as Volt Rivka would have by Lavan and Betuel stayed there over time, unnecessarily. Therefore, we had to begin going out of the thorns, Durach Shikan, by means of sending Eliezer, Ada Rivka, sending Eliezer immediately when he knew. Ada Rivka is Altgeven before Rivka was 3 years old, with 1 day, right? She passed the age of 3. Un the Rebbe is Darnach Geven Kafitza Derech. So as soon as he knew about it, he sent him, and immediately he arrived there, Kadeas, in order, Zizal Dart, Nidblev, so that Rivka would not remain there, kind of did one unnecessary moment. B'shas Eliezer, and then when Eliezer, therefore, when he came to Aram Naharayim, Aram Narayan, that's where he was, right? As Hut, that's where Abraham came from, Aram Narayan. As Hut there, Verstande, he understood as Laban und Betuel, Valentina, that they would say that Rivka, she should stay there for a time, Bizay, until they, Betuel and Laban, the Azoivias Haben, Taka Getan, like they said, Tashevanara. In fact, that's what they did. Let her stay here for another year or for a while longer. As Hatar de Gleich, he immediately said, Hayom, you should know that I came today, the same day that I left. What does it mean? Ir Zoltwesen, you should know. As das is an Indian from was handelt sich in Minuten. This is a matter of minutes, right? And what are you talking about? You should stay for another week, another year. Minutes are precious. Yeah, every minute is a shad. Every minute is a shame. Unaraya, and this is what's the proof? What's the proof that every second is so important? The same day that I left, I arrived. God made a big miracle that it wouldn't take me 17 days to get here. But immediately I arrived so that Rivka would not remain even one day, even one moment in this state of being in your house. The Offenheim invasion. Okay, good. So that's the Hasidic meaning that immediately, as soon as a person can leave the forces of evil, he should. What's the obvious teaching from this? From Torah Sipur, as far uns und weiter Doros, the teaching for us and for all future generations is Maisa Avos is a Simon Labanim. That what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob they did, it's a sign for their offspring. Azoivi by just like by Rivka. Is given Kvitzaderech was a jumping of the way. Kadei Zizal nit far blaven. She should not remain one unnecessary moment. In Betuel's house, and Betuel's her father, is Azoi is does oich Simon. This is also a sign for us. What's the sign? God made a big miracle to take Rivka out of a bad situation. Is also the same thing as that was something like in going out of Egypt. Men darf nit arupfall, and you shouldn't become depressed by zich from them choshech, from the darkness of exile. Parum, because the Eibishter, because God, vetzu elin, he will hurry up the redemption. As men zal nit darfen believe, we should not remain in exile one unnecessary minute. One unnecessary minute. Azoivi Mitzrayim, just like Egypt, is their source, is the source from all the exiles. Und Punkt Vin, just like in the exile in Egypt, it was Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh Yatzu. The Jews went out of Egypt at the first possible moment. Und Ve'er, like it says in the Mechilta, a Midrash, as their Eibishter, the God, had sie nit, God had not, it was a little bit bigger on the next page. Here we go. Oh, all right. Oh, why not? There we go. God had not Iber gehalten afilu kein Eugen Blick. He did not even leave the Jews like the wink of an eye in Egypt more than they had to be. The same thing as now. Like it says in the prophet, was it Hosea 19? Micha. It says, just like God took us out of Egypt, he's going to show us miracles in the future. Is in Itztakadoros, in our exile now, as men darf nit nor mashlim zayin the pachim katanim. All we have to do is just finish the little tiny, whatever is little sparks or whatever. And then after that, will be meir of yaminu, quickly, speedily in our days, will be the total redemption of the Jewish people by means of the Moshiach. So God does not delay the redemption even one moment. Why is it schlepping out so long? God knows. But as soon as the time comes, is it will happen for sure, and it'll happen at the first possible time. So yesterday we learned about the importance of the physical body and why Abraham was told to listen to Sarah, even though the Sarah represents the body and Abraham represents the soul. Remember we learned that yesterday? that it's very, very important, of utmost importance, that the commandments and the godliness and etc. should be expressed in this physical world. That's what we learned yesterday. And today we're learning that the future redemption depends on God. And God will not allow us to remain in this exile even one extra moment. He'll make all sorts of miracles and etc. that it's going to happen. And for sure it will happen. And for sure it'll happen at the soonest possible moment. But I wish it would happen one moment sooner. Have a good day with Moshiach. And I'll see you tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. God bless you all with Moshiach now.